as New Delhi prepares to host the upcoming G20 summit level talks, where the world leaders will gather to discuss about the global financial architecture, supply chain resilience, food security, energy security, climate change, issues of global south, which of course India has been actively advocating. There are two information that are not going along with the kind of enthusiasm New Delhi has been keeping with. First, of course, has been the absence of Vladimir Putin, Russian president, from the G20 summit level talks. He is sending Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, to represent Russia and put across the Russian point of view to the world leaders who will be present in Delhi. The second information which is emerging is probably Chinese President Xi Jinping may also give a skip to the G20 summit level talks held in New Delhi in the second week of September. If the news that has been being reported by Reuters happens to be true, it would also highlight another aspect of bilateral relationship in between India and China that doesn't seem to be very normal. Uh, People were expecting ever since Prime Minister Modi had a bilateral conversation with President Xi Jinping in Johannesburg on the sidelines of BRICS summit level talks that there would be some breakthrough in the bilateral relationship between India and China. In fact, Prime Minister Modi had flagged the issue of border tension and how de-escalation or disengagement of those tension in the western frontier is very necessary to have a normal bilateral relationship. Chinese side was very silent on the issue of border tension, and they were more keen on highlighting that border tensions or disputes should be put appropriately in the overall bilateral dynamics, and it is a joint responsibility of the two sides to keep the tension and under check and restore the peace and tranquility along the bordering areas, which of course India has not been very much agreeing with, and they have always said the Chinese side needs to de-escalate and disengage to have overall normalcy in the bilateral relationship. Now, we just saw how Chinese government has also come out with a map which shows Arunachal Pradesh and citing as part of its own territory, which India rejected. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar called this step of Chinese government as an absurd. Ministry of External Affairs in its statement rejected the map and said that they have raised the issue with China diplomatically, and the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs sort of replied that it should not, people should not overinterpret the map. But I mean, what is left to interpret if you are showing your official map consisting the sovereign territory of other nations, and then you expect that people would not overreact and overinterpret this map? Then it is just not possible. So it was a very provocative step from the Chinese side, and that did not go down well with the Indian external Ministry of External Affairs, and it had a reaction. And ever since it was being expected that probably the talk that Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping had in Johannesburg did not pave way for a normalcy or something, that the two sides were keen on having a de-escalation or disengagement. We recently saw multiple rounds of talks between army commanders and army officers also happening in the Western Ladakh sector, but that also doesn't seem to have bore the fruit essentially because if Chinese President Xi Jinping is giving a skip to the G20 level meeting in New Delhi, there could be two reasons. First, as the Russian Foreign Ministry has explained in yesterday's press briefing, that G7 grouping within G20 is trying to dominate the agenda, and they are trying to create Ukraine as a center point of all the multilateral platforms and meetings across the world, and they are trying to create a propaganda which is anti-Russia plus China. And the Russian Foreign Ministry said that Russia would try to counter the G7 allegation and G7 propaganda with BRICS grouping within G20 platform. So while G20 is being handled by the presidency under India, the fighting grounds of Delhi seems to be more with G7 groupings having their point of view against Russia and China. Russia and China trying to create a grouping to counter the propaganda, so-called propaganda by the G7 groupings with their BRICS member partner countries. So clearly G7, G20, which is going to be held in Delhi, is not going to be a very easy task for India's presidency, which was hoping that it would try to create a consensus among world leaders on the current global issues, especially of food crisis, energy crisis, which has been the problem of global south as well. India has been pointing to the concerns that the fight in Europe should not be the only issue that the world leaders should be discussing right now. There are other issues of importance also, that is of existential in nature, that is the food security, where so many countries in the southern globe are not being able to purchase the food from the international market. Then there are energy issues with the skyrocketing price of petroleum products across the world. The fuel is in short supply, fertilizer is in short supply, that is going to have an impact on the next season's harvest and sowing also. Then there are issues of supply chain resilience which the world needs to think about. Issues of climate change, which is also an existential for a small island nation, which are many of them are part of South Globe. So these are also the issues that the G20 should focus upon and discuss. But it looks like Ukraine first, between G7 bloc and Russia, China, and also India-China bilateral relationship not be doing well, is going to have its long shadow over the overall agenda and the point of discussion that the G20 leaders will be discussing during the 2-day summit level talks in the second week of September in Delhi.